Hey yo, you know who it is, you know what it is, and I'm back for another one. I'm just gonna say, as you can tell right now, some changes have been made. If you haven't been on the stream, because I haven't really been streaming, um, which I had to take a little bit of time off because I had some things going on, right? Uh, Anniversaries and handling, uh, just life, you know what I'm saying? Handling life. And at that time, what I could have done is still made a way to keep going, right? I could have. And when I say keep going, I'm talking about keep streaming, right? Because I told you guys I would. I told you I would stream every day. And for the most part, I had been. But every now and then a person will need a break. Okay. So that's what had to happen because I was also, like I said, trying to take care of other things that were going on. I had business things going on, ended up having a trip, right? Y'all knew that. I talked to you about that before I did it. It was a business trip, had to take care of that. So there's been quite a bit of things that's been going on. Okay, so things have been moving forward, um, which is wonderful. One of the things that I can tell you that is not necessarily moving forward, which we got to get on this immediately, people. Immediately. What is that? The follows and the subscriptions, right? We got to get on the follows and the subscriptions. Why? Because we haven't made any progress. We got to make progress. This content that I'm bringing to you guys, you know as well as I know that I'm really pushing for good content. I'm really pushing for content that's going to not only help me, but also help you guys, right? But I'll tell you one of the things that I did do. I went back and I looked at other videos because, and I'm gonna tell you this. So about, what was it, Monday? I think it was Monday. It was either Monday or Tuesday. Monday into Tuesday. I went on and I streamed, right? I went and streamed live on YouTube. Um, a number of the episodes or shows that we've already done, right? Because they're all on YouTube. But what I did was I streamed those live. Okay. I set up a live stream and we just ran those reruns, if you will, right? Back to back. Now, we had some viewers over there on YouTube. We had some people come on YouTube, watch the videos. Some people came in the chat, was talking in the chat. Again, this is the reruns of the content, and it seems like it was received pretty well, which is wonderful, right? That's a wonderful thing. So I'm saying that for you guys to let you know that the content is helping people, right? And if you are one of the ones who is watching it and you haven't liked, you haven't subscribed, you haven't went over to one of the social medias, right, into one of these and, like, followed, shared anything, it doesn't cost you anything to do that. You know what I'm saying? Just a second of your time. Go ahead and make that happen, right? Because we know that there's people who need to become the best version of ourselves, of themselves, right? We know that. You know, you need to become the best version of yourself. That's what this whole thing is about. It's about us doing that, right? Us helping us. When we do that, what happens is it's a rising tide. Like I said, say it with me, raises all boats, right? We all trying to float out here in this vast ocean of life that no one has given us training for, right? Nobody's giving you training for this. So I'm not going to say that mine live, right? Our live is the training ground, but in a way, it kind of is, right? It kind of is. My only goal is to help everybody who watches it to have a different perspective of life. Because I'm not telling you what to do. That's not my goal. My goal is not to tell you, because every situation is different. Everybody's life is a little bit different. You have a lot of different context that needs to go into the pot whenever an answer for your situation specifically is tailored. Okay? Now, can I give you some general things? Can I give you some things that can make you say, right? Possibly. I possibly can do that. I think that anybody can do that, right? Give you things that make you think. However, what I'm giving you is from my age, my experience, and I'm the type of person who pays attention. Okay? When I say pay attention, I pay attention to the movers, I pay attention to the non-movers, I pay attention to everything that's going on. And the way my brain works is I connect dots. Okay? So if I learn some information from the Bible, if I learn some information from this book over here, if I learn some information by watching these people over here, if I learn some information because I went through something and something happened and I looked at the feedback that happened, you know what I mean? Then I can start to connect dots. Okay. This is how I'm pulling all this information together, right? Combined with the dictionary, because we want to understand the words. I want to be able to translate that to you. And I feel like we have to level set the words, which is why we go to the dictionary. Okay. All of this is done in the hopes that all of us can grow. Okay. You, me, and anybody else who watches this. Okay. That's why I'm saying to share it with somebody. And if you like or subscribe, then other people can see it. And that way we can all grow together. Okay. So I just wanted to make sure I highlighted that part right there, because in everything that you do, it should be growing, right? If you come to this channel, we should be growing, right? Because we're not giving you bad information. We're not giving you information that's flawed or that, can hurt you or put you in a bad position or isolate you. That's not what this content does, people. That's not at all. What this content does is gives you more resources, more tools in your tool belt, if you will, for you to be the best version of yourself. So that way, when you show up for people or show up in situations, you can always stand up strong and know that I've done my very best in this situation to, one, above everything, act like an adult and try to push for the best result, right? Not the best result only for you, but the best result that the situation can warrant to get the best for all the parties involved. Now, sometimes, and most of the time, we would hope that the best thing you get out of that situation will leave you happy, leave them happy, and the situation is convenient, not convenient, but it works for both of you, right? If that happens, that's a successful interaction, right? If it doesn't happen, there still can be considered some success there. How? Because you can learn something, right? If it comes out that it's best for you one way, that can still be considered good, but you don't want to do that while hurting someone else. You know what I mean? You don't want to hurt anybody. What you want to do is you want them to feel good about the situation too. And not a forced feel good, right? Not a forced feel good, but a feel good of, I tried to make sure that we both were mutually benefited in our interaction. Okay? So, with that though, here's one of the reasons why some people may end up not getting the best result out of an interaction or out of their own life, period. Right? Why is that? You've seen the title, you should know what we're talking about, which is we are living in emergency mode, right? Emergency mode. That's not a good place to be, right? Because if you're living in emergency mode, then that means you feel like inside everything is urgent. And we talked about why rush your life, right? But what we're going to do today is we're going to give the tools or an idea of how to stop living in emergency mode. Okay? That's what we're going to talk about. How can we stop living in emergency mode? Let's start this off, right? Because we are not wanting to react to things, right? We don't want to react in situations. We want to respond, right? A response would be intentional. A response would be something that I know I'm going to do based on what was said, done, or not the feelings, but the experience that's going on, right? It's almost as if I'm looking at a chessboard and I have all the pieces on there, my pieces are doing what it's doing, the opposition's pieces are doing what they're doing, and as I'm playing this game of chess, it's one thing once he gets you on the run, right? The opponent, you're sitting on that other side and you're moving your chess pieces, and now I'm trying to get away because I can tell that you got me on the run. You can almost in a couple moves, if I let it ride, you'll end up getting my king in check, right? That's not good. Or I want to keep my queen, right? Like I know I want my queen because I have a move coming up that I want to make sure I can do that with. So now I got my queen on the run, right? I'm moving it around, trying to get away so I can get into a mode that I can strike. In that moment, I'm moving out of emergency, right? Because I'm trying not to get checkmated, right? Or even get put in check at all. But I'm also not trying to lose my queen, right? And in some instances, you might not even want to lose your bishop or your rook or your knight. You're trying to move these pieces around so that way you can use them as weapons later. But when somebody has you on the run, has your back to the wall, then what happens? Now you got to try to maneuver. Now you're just reacting based on training, based on understanding, based on whatever it is in life that you've been able to experience that gives you the ability to keep trying to move. But that's all reaction, right? That's reactionary moves that you're doing at that point. It's just muscle memory. That's a state that can be not good for you in the terms of life. Because if you feel like your back is to the wall and you don't know what to do, right? I don't know what to do. Okay, I ran out of money. Uh, um, I put myself in a situation that now I got to figure out how to get out of it, right? Those are things that have your back against the wall, right? So the only way to go is forward. If my back's against the wall, I can't turn around, right? I can't run away. I got to go forward. But I don't want to do that based on just reacting, right? I want to have a plan. I want to what well, you know what? Over everything, I don't want to get put with my back on the wall, right? So, what do I do to try to mitigate that before I have to put my back on the wall, right? If you can tell right now, what we're doing is we're actually defining what does that look like to be in an emergency, which is when you start to get to your default of whatever you do to react to something, right? I want to go deeper with the back against the wall. Okay. So if a person has their back against the wall at that moment, it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter whether it's a text that comes through. It doesn't matter whether you get a bill. It doesn't matter whether um, somebody comes to you with a really minute problem. It doesn't matter. What happens is everything feels like it needs to be done right now, right? Everything. Doesn't matter what it is. You feel like in this moment, everything's an emergency, right? I don't want to get my lights cut off. I don't want to get my cell phone cut off. I don't want to get kicked out of school. I don't want to um not keep my position in this line or in this company, or I don't want to lose my business, right? So everything that comes in is like, I gotta save it, I gotta save it, right? It's almost like juggling, right? I'm sitting here juggling, and all I'm trying to do is keep all of the balls in the air. You know what I'm saying? Can't drop one. Everything's an emergency. That's the mode I'm trying to get us out of, right? Not just you, but me also, right? I'm trying to get me out of that mode because it still happens, right? There's times where everything may be going good. You're feeling wonderful. All of the like everything that you had a problem with before has been resolved, right? Everything has been resolved and now you're feeling good. Okay. But most people, even once it starts feeling good, like even when you get into a place that you're not in emergency mode, you still end up operating as if you are, right? Because it's worked for you. It's worked for you to get out of emergency mode. You didn't get out, but it feels like you're out because these things aren't still pushing against you, but you're still operating as if you are. Everything's still urgent. I gotta keep going, gotta keep going, gotta keep drilling. Can't stop, can't stop, can't stop. Right? That's panic mode. Okay. But today we're calling it emergency mode because that's how people feel. They feel like everything is urgent, everything is now, everything's an emergency. Okay. But what we need to do is to be able to stop and think clearly, right? Which will allow us the ability to create a plan, right? And then we can just work our plan. Because now I'm operating from intentionality, right? I'm responding to the situation. I'm not just reacting to the situation, right? Here's one of the things that I found that a lot of people I don't even think that they realize what they're doing to a person when they do this, but they act as if, you know, whatever their thing is so important. But whenever you have something, they act like they're going to put it in priority for you. They're going to tell you that, I mean, that's not that urgent. I mean, life's not going to end, right? But when it's for them, when it's something that's on their mind, it needs to be done yesterday. Do you ever experience that, chat? Ever? If you have, put it in the chat. Let me hear about it. Matter of fact, I want to hear of any situation that you had where people feel like that their thing's an emergency, but then you came to them and they tried to act like yours was nothing, and yours was probably a real emergency, but they gave no urgency to it, right? Let me ask you this. Have you ever rushed to answer every text message that hits your phone? If you have, what does that feel like? Right? What does that feel like to you? Doesn't it feel like you on edge? Right? Like, oh, if I don't answer this, if I don't, I'm gonna lose this deal if I don't answer this right now. Right? But I'm gonna tell you, if that deal is for you, nothing you can do will lose you that deal. If that deal is really for you, right? What about like a time when this event starts at 6 o'clock. You're supposed to be there by 6 o'clock. Well, it's 5 o'clock and it only takes you 30 minutes to get there. You get there at 5:30 and you still are rushing to get out the car, rushing to get to the door, rushing to get to the right. So in other words, you feel like you're late even though you're on time, right? Has that happened to you? Or is that just me? Am I the only one? Maybe. Maybe. Okay, here we go. I'll bring it to your neighborhood. I'll bring it to your neighborhood. You ever had a time where you were just said yes too fast? Or maybe you changed your plans too quickly. You ever did that? Right? Or this one's for you because I know you did this one. It's for you. Have you ever been driving and when traffic slows down, even though you're not late, it turns into a crisis? You think everybody's wrong for switching lanes? You think everybody's wrong for hitting the brake pedal? You think the machine that runs the lights to turn them from red, yellow, and green, you think that it's wrong when it turned it yellow and then red on you as you were driving? That's emergency mode. That's emergency mode. That's the mode that you're operating in when everything is urgent to you, right? You feel like everything is urgent to you. Like, I think if we're ever gonna get past it, we're ever gonna like get that emergency mode turned off, if you will. The first thing we need to figure out is this situation a real emergency, right? Because we have to bring our brain back into alignment, right? We have to bring our brain back under to reality thinking. So we have to start asking our questions to ourselves. That's the only way that we're going to get out of it. I think that say you're driving and something happens, and I'm a fan of speaking out loud to yourself. I'm a fan of talking to myself. People can say, "Oh, you're crazy, you're talking to yourself." Well, no, I'm not. The fact of the matter is, sometimes you have to hear it, right? And don't get me wrong, you can talk to yourself and hear it inside. And sometimes that's okay. Say other people are around and you don't want to, start talking to yourself out loud with other people in the car, other people in the situation with you. That's fine. Talk to yourself. You can hear yourself inside yourself. But if you're by yourself, why not talk out loud? Because sometimes I feel like we need to hear it. We need to hear us say the things that we're saying. Because sometimes that'll even tell you whether you even got whether you even understand what you're trying to say. You know what I mean? Like, because a lot of times I think we don't even know what we're trying to get across, and then we just talking. We don't even hear ourselves speak, right? Because our brain is too noisy. So the first thing we have to find out, well, is this a real emergency? this situation, right? Or have I just trained myself to respond like everything I'm doing is an emergency, right? Do I have urgency or am I operating from anxiety, right? Because I don't think every form of anxiety is debilitating, right? Like when you, a lot of people say when they have a panic attack or whatever, then they get stuck, right? I think that a lot of people, especially nowadays, are in this full-on panic mode, right? Emergency mode, and they're operating out of anxiety for whatever's going to happen, which hasn't even happened. Uh, but they're still moving, right? So it's almost like anxiety with motion. I, I don't know. Is that a thing? Is that a thing? Tell me in the chat. I don't know if that's a thing or not, but if it's a thing, let me know. So I think though that that's how a lot of people are acting because of the state of the world in this moment, right? I remember that we've done a couple of streams um that are kind of in this same ballpark, right? Like we did a stream called Am I Addicted to Pressure, right? Because as I stated there, I think some people only know how to function with pressure, right? Well, not with it, but under it, right? Under pressure. That's the only way that they can function because that gives them a real sense of emergency. If I wait till the last minute to do this thing, then now I have a real sense of emergency. Like it forces me to action, right? I can't decide to take action. I need to be forced into action. I feel like that's addicted to pressure, right? You're addicted. You, sir, ma'am, are addicted to the pressure, right? We had another stream called Why Rush Your Life, right? Because rushing is like fear in motion, right? And I said it a second ago, right? Anxiety with motion, right? That's rushing, right? So if you're operating always rushing, always trying to get to the next thing, and you're not taking anything in, I just got to do this, go, do this, go, do this, go, do this, go, right? You're rushing. Emergency mode, panic mode, right? All of this stuff goes together. This is what I've been trying to tell y'all, right? We even did a stream of, well, don't make life decisions from financial fear, right? That's still a panic mode. That's still an emergency mode, right? Like if you're making decisions from panic mode instead of from wisdom, now you're in a frame of making decisions that you might not even like the decision later. Because I only made a decision to get up out of the situation. It wasn't a decision that got me prepared for the next thing. It was a decision only to get me out of this, and more than likely, it's going to drive me deeper, not into that, but into this other thing because I made it in a under duress, right? Then we did a whole nother stream talking about, well, why do you keep why do you keep starting over, right? Because if you're in that emergency mode, if you're in that reaction mode, right? What it does is it ends up making you break down the plan, the structure that you created too soon, right? I'm not going to continue on my plan because I'm in emergency mode. Throw all of that out the window. We have to get out of this fire. We have to get out of this situation, right? Okay, I was in a house fire, right? I think I was 25 years old at the time. Got into a house fire, and in that moment, it was me and one of my daughters, and I end up getting burned. And in me getting burned, all of the plans that I had for that day went out the window, right? Every plan I had. Didn't matter where I was going, didn't matter what I was about to do, didn't matter anything else. That was a true emergency. That was truly urgent, right? I lost everything I had that day, except for my kids, except for my wife. Still had them. That was what was most important. But that I did have my back against a wall in that moment because I got to get out of here, right? I got to get out of this fire. I got to get my daughter out because she's with me. She was 2 at the time. So we need to get out of here, right? My back was against the wall. And so in that central situation, I got to make whatever decision I got to make to get us out of this situation. I don't care nothing about my plans, right? I don't care nothing about the fact that I had my shirt that I was going to wear that day on the ironing board with the iron still hot. Now, the fire didn't happen because of the ironing board, but I'm saying that the iron was still sitting there on the ironing board after everything else burnt down. You can still see, the burnt ironing board with the iron standing up, sitting next to the shirt that was laying on the ironing board. And this is in the back part of the house. So I'm saying that to say that if you're in a real emergency, it makes sense that you would, whatever your plans were, don't amount to a hill of beans at that point. It's get out of that situation, especially if it's life or death, right? If it's impacting your family, get out of it, right? In a negative way. So this is why I'm saying that it's not good to operate from that feeling, from that position in your life daily. Daily. You're having an overflow of what do you call it? Hormones that are being produced to keep you with the mental capacity to handle an emergency being used at a time that's not an emergency, right? So that's why we ended up doing the stream also talking about the walk for peace, right? But as a man, because this is the position I'm speaking from, that's the time when you're really tested on if you are truly a man, right? When you're under pressure, when you are in an emergency, how are you going to show up, right? What happens though is if every day you're operating from a sense of panic, from a sense of emergency, from a sense of, well, I gotta always be on point, blah, 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 then what do you do when the emergency really turns up? Do you have another level you can go to? Another level of panic mode? You know what I'm saying? At that point, what do you have? Ludicrous mode? You know what I'm saying? Plaid? You got to give the situation the raspberry jam? You know what I'm saying? I mean, what are we gonna do? Because that can't be the consistent way that we operate. It just can't be. Because if that's the consistent way we operate, it's gonna be really hard to turn up when it's really time to turn up. right? So what happens if we're constantly in emergency mode? What happens to us, right? What happens is we end up not having patience anymore, right? It makes it harder, and we had a stream about this. It makes it harder for us to discern the environment that we're in, right? I'm not saying that you can't do it in emergency mode. I'm saying the consistent emergency mode then makes it harder, right? Because if everything's an emergency, then nothing sticks out, right? And humans thrive off the ability for things that look different to stick out to them so they know that there's a problem, right? And when I say stick out, I'm talking about one of these things is doing its own thing. One of these things ain't one and the same, right? So this is why I'm saying like you can't constantly operate from that mode, right? Because it's training your body to stay on edge and your mind. It's training your mind and your body to stay on edge. How are you going to continue that for a long period of time without burnout? Right? So that's the reason why we can't sit here and stay in that mode. We have to change it, right? We have to change it. How are we going to change it? That's what you're asking me, Rich. How are we going to change it? Really simple, right? Really simple. We have to build in the margins. We have to do things like leave earlier. We have to stop answering every question like it needs an answer right now, right? We have to think more. Think more. We have to separate real emergencies from emotional emergencies or even from manipulation emergencies, right? And when I say manipulation emergencies, I'm talking about from other people, right? Because we deal with other people and those people who feel like their thing is an emergency all the time and your thing is not. We have to know how to deal with that, right? So we have to separate those things, right? And then we also have to prepare and make plans before we hit that pressure. We have to figure out how am I going to work this thing out. So let's say you have client work, right? Let's say you have client work. If a client says, "Hey, I need this project done. Here's our deadline, blah blah blah." Once we know that deadline, now it's on us to make a plan. I need to work 2 hours this day on this part of it. I need to work 4 hours that day to get that part done. I need to put in an hour this day so I can check on that part of it. I need to follow up with the client about that right there. I need, like, you're going to set a plan because you know your projects, you know the things that you do, right? So if you know the things that you do, you can set a plan for how that works out instead of saying, you know what, I'll just wait till they call me and ask me what my status is, and then I'll just kind of fake something, and then I'll do a little bit more work, and then tell them, hey, well, I'm waiting on this. You just making up something to try to push the time off you. But what I'm trying to tell you is we got to plan it and then walk the plan. Because then what you're doing is you're also building in time that you don't have to be working on that thing, right? Because if I build out the schedule for the things that I need to work on, then I'm gonna also build in time that I'm not gonna be working on that, right? Because if I'm planning, then I can plan for a vacation. I can plan for time off. I can plan for going to a movie. I could plan for hanging out with my friends, hanging out with my wife, hanging out with my kids. I can plan for it. But if I make everything an emergency and everything the last minute and I'm under pressure all the time, I'm just doing whatever's hot right now, right? Whatever's hot right now. I didn't see the event coming up, so now I got to prepare for that at the last minute because I didn't see it, because I was working on this, because I got to get this deadline done before that, and then this, that. That's too much. That's too much. Wouldn't you want to walk through life like button up, right? I know exactly what I'm doing. I know what my day is like. I got it on the calendar. Plus, I got this going on. I know I'm doing this next. Like, people say, hey, I want to go do this right here, man. Come on, let's go do this. Nah, I'm good. I got this going on, but I could do it probably next week. And don't feel any way bad about it. Why? Because I have a plan. I have a structure. I want to see success, right? Because if I keep doing that, if I keep operating from that way, I'm not going to see success. I may have some great events. I may go to some great things. I may, maybe try some great food because I'm just randomly going. But in the end, it's going to make me feel not happy with myself, right? Because I'm not achieving my goals. I'm not meeting my deadlines. I'm not being a man or a woman of my word, right? So once we build the structure, we make the plan, then we let that lead, right? That's what we're following. We're following the plan that we set. That way we never have to be in panic mode. We never have to be in emergency mode. Because now if something comes up and we ask ourselves the question, is this an emergency? Right? Or is this a real emergency, or urgent emergency? Or is this something that, you know, I made up? Or is it something that somebody else is trying to tell me is an emergency, but I can see that that's not really an emergency for me? And that's okay, right? We have to slow down. Give us chance to give yourself time enough to think. That way you get a chance to think about it clearly. Because there's sometimes where you might have just said no because you knew you had a lot going on. But if you give yourself a chance to think, you're like, well, I may have chance to do that. I could probably help them with that, right? If they say it's okay that I can do it 1 hour on this day, maybe 2 hours on that day, and maybe another hour on that day, I still equal the same amount of hours, but give me about 2 weeks to put that in my schedule. Most people won't have a problem with it if you've communicated what the expectation level needs to be based on them wanting to do business with you or them wanting to work with you, right? So that's why I'm saying a lot of this stuff is just comes down to slowing down, think it through, make a plan, communicate that plan, and be okay with the rest of it. That is the way that we get out of emergency mode and get into self awareness, peace, and live a calm life. Because everything's not emergency, and some of y'all are not living with urgency, you're just living in reaction. Emergency mode will have you making permanent decisions for temporary pressure. Get me tongue tied up in here, right? It's on us to get ordered and structure, get rid of the pressure, because pressure is not supposed to be part of your personality. It's not supposed to be part of your identity. Pressure is not a value add. You know what I'm saying? It's not. It actually shows that you've been living in an incorrect way for a long time, and you may not know how to live from a place of peace. So we have to get to the place of peace so we know what that feels like and understand how good that feels like, that you don't have to look over your shoulder, that you don't have people coming after you, or bills stacking up, or deadlines that you've already run over and you're trying to keep getting extensions on. all that kind of stuff. That's a that's too stressful. It's too stressful. There's no peace in that. So if you if you can identify with the things that we talked about today, I urge you, make a change, make a different decision, right? Make a different decision. Again, my point is to give you a different perspective, a different way to look at it, maybe a tool or two that you can implement, right? So ask yourself those questions. Look at it from a different light. Is this really an emergency for me? And if not, don't operate like it is. You don't have to back up, put your back on the wall to handle the situation. Sometimes the handling is just, hey, give me a chance to think about that. I'll circle back with you tomorrow, later today. It's that simple. Okay? It's truly that simple. So I'm gonna go. I got an event to go through later tonight, right? So I just want y'all to know that I appreciate everybody who jumped in today, everybody who joined me, anybody who watches this later, right? If you watch it on YouTube, make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, turn on notification bell so you know when I'm dropping more, or you even know if I go live on YouTube, because I don't do that nowhere near as regularly as I do it here, but I might, because I I have plans for all the platforms I'm a part of, but you have to be following me on those platforms to know when I'm doing it. You know what I'm saying? Because it might feel random to y'all, but it ain't random to me. I know exactly when I want to do things, but I want you to be following. I want you to have your notifications on so that way you can jump in and it'll be an exciting time, right? Oh, shoot, the Real Rich Bees is live. Let's jump in, right? Rising tide raises all boats. Hey, make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend. Follow your man's Rich Bees, the Real Rich Bees on all of these. And I will see you next time. You know who it is. You know what it is. Rich Bees out.